Welcome back, fam. Time for another out-of-this-world story from our space. Let's get right to it. I catfished a former boss to get paid. I used to work for a married couple, Billy, male 52, and Gigi, female 44, who owned a business services public relations agency. It lasted more or less for a year. They seemed nice and humble, but in reality, they were shady and untruthful. The company began to falter because of poor management and zero intention to prioritize. Billy was your babyface next-door neighbor type. He looked about 10 years younger and had a kind smile. He was soft-spoken and had an artistic and creative flair to him. Gigi looked matronly with a Mother Earth incarnate attitude towards her children. She prided herself on being ruthless when it came to giving her family only the best. She could be really nice when she wanted to, but I found out early on that she was 100% apt at gossip and being two-faced. The company's constant changes were a red flag. They went from business services and PR agency to IT provider to a business incubator to indie beer partners. What I'm trying to say is that they tried to dip their donut on everyone's coffee, figuratively. Some of us had no real way to escape. The lady working next to me was already 67 years old and scared that no one would hire her. I wasn't in a great place either. We were 8 employees in total. They wouldn't lay anyone off because they believed that employees should quit. They paid us only a portion of our salaries, incomplete weekly payments. Employees would run for the hills once they found a better job. Some of us were stuck. It was horrible. Then, they would pay the normal rate for a month, and then do it again. They never cut down on their luxury expenses, so the wife would post her shopping sprees or arrive in a new car like it was nothing. Zero empathy. Very insensitive. The husband was obsessed with making it big time, so much that he sometimes failed to see an opportunity right in front of him. He said he was Coca-Cola's brand manager. I swear I looked it up and could never find any reference. Gigi had a display full of small local magazines, mostly about design and architecture. They were very proud to be a team member, but in reality, they just helped them print 2 issues. They wanted big business only, but in the meantime, looked down upon tangible potential clients, like the young Latino couple who showed off trying to learn more about their services. They seemed lost because they wanted someone to help them set up a coffee business and had no idea how it was done. I talked to them and helped them into the waiting room. They even showed up with their baby in a stroller. That means they must have driven by and decided to come in. An impulsive client should be retained. The guy said his grandpa had a family and he wanted to create an import-exports company. Once Billy showed up, he listened for a bit, then kind of gave them a kind of an abrupt dismissal. That was a dick move because that couple opened their business with someone else and even have a Facebook page. It could have been Billy. Billy lined his office walls with posters of Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. His wife, the chief enabling officer, put up signs on each room. The main employee area was the machine room. Billy's office was the chamber. The conference room was a meeting of the minds. Every time an employee disagreed with Billy during a brainstorming session, Gigi would call them aside and tell them that Billy is your boss. You need to know that he is brilliant and a genius. I want him to have that taste of success. I experienced that firsthand. I also hated brainstorming because that was never on my job description. They just wanted to pick everyone's brains. In the meantime, we had to see the Pandora jewelry, the expensive makeovers for their daughters, and the weekend at the spa updates on Facebook. Gigi's captions were usually about rewarding herself after a hard week, or because she deserved it. Oh, and I'd like to mention that they'd bought into the social guru phrases about emotional direction. So if an employee ever got angry, Gigi would tell you, remember the ones who get angry is the one who ends up losing. For anyone who's been in this situation, you may understand how painful it can be. You cannot leave the job because you have no other job waiting for you, and pathetic as it may sound to some income is better than no income at all. This is an involuntary compromise, and it's abusive. Why were we expected to pay for their luxuries via incomplete wages? My best friend's ex is into coding and programming, and he agreed to help. If it didn't work out, at least we would have something to laugh about. We created a kick-ass fake website with a matching LinkedIn and the whole 9 yards. To make a long story short, this was supposed to be an investment company, and my friend would be very casual, nothing too eager. He started by liking my employer's Facebook page, then comment. Before we knew, My boss took the bait and was engaging. They engaged emails and he was eager to share all his projects and ambitious crap. On the other side, the investor sent him a list of requirements, like proof of concept, employer payroll, EIN number, etc. The investor agreed to work them if they could prove they were legit and up to date. No bank account or confidentials info was asked. Within 3 weeks, I was paid the equivalent to the 2.5 months I was owed. The investor did an about face and never contacted him again. I left the jobs as soon as I could. My friend, who remained until she got paid, told me our boss seemed off and a bit down after he announced big things are coming, but it all seemed to deflate. I never disclosed what was really going on. Edit. My boss wasn't scammed into paying money to the fake website. He was catfished into getting up to date with employee salaries that he owed. Edit. I expanded the story. Edit again. For anyone who doesn't understand the story, no money was paid, asked from, or wired from my boss to the investor. We baited his greedy character and told him that if he could prove everything was in order, the investment would happen. This included the payroll. No confidential info was asked, nor offered, seen, or reviewed. He paid everyone what he owed them. The payment was made to each worker as normally. No one stole money via any website. He just made the diligence. EIN numbers and what we asked are not confidential. Alright, time for some feedback. Used as Schwartz says, sounds like an overly complicated way to get your money when you could have just filed a wage complaint with the government. Another Redditor, Parallel Ivers, said, I tried that once. Took a year for me to get paid. But then, I'd already moved on and was making enough money that it didn't make much difference anymore. I needed the money when he owed it to me. If I could have pulled off a stunt like this, I wouldn't have had to beg my family to help me make rent and buy food. Kudos to OP. Hydrospanner thinks, yeah, it's usually a lost cause trying to get back pay that you're owed if the employer has no intention of paying you. When I was younger, I heard, not firsthand, but from several unrelated sources, and the stories were all fairly similar, about a guy who had a business serving the fracking companies in the area. I guess he was a real piece of work, always doing sketchy crap and cutting corners, and above all, he was super anti-government, which meant he acted like OSHA didn't exist, flaunted safety regs, screwed around with tax stuff to get out of paying anything he could, and paid almost all of his small group of employees under the table. They were, of course, fine with this arrangement, until the pay started getting erratic. At first, it was just pay coming a day late. Then it was, hey guys, I can only pay you half now, but I'll make it up to you in the next payday. Before too long, this guy owed every employee at least 4 digits, and in some cases more. Nobody knew for sure, but they figured one or more of his bigger clients found out about how he ran his business and ended their dealings with him. Of course, when you do business like this guy, there's no contracts, so people can just walk away from an agreement, and you're not gonna sue. Anyway, eventually, the owed back pay reached a tipping point, and his crew confronted him about it, and he had the audacity to basically tell them to shut up and get back to work. He'd pay them when he damn well pleased. Well, within the next few weeks, I guess over $50,000 worth of his equipment somehow ended up damaged beyond repair. One work truck randomly burst into flames and was a total loss. A mysterious number of windows ended up broken, and one truck even just vanished, with the coworker who was driving it inside, never to be heard from again. Within a few weeks, he'd had almost all of his crap broken or stolen, and literally all of his small crew just quit answering their phones. He was into so much shady crap that he didn't even pursue any of his crew. He just declared bankruptcy or something, sold what was left of the business and his house, and that was basically that. Alright, moving on to the next story. Affair partner gets dirty, illegal, linens aired, loses job as financial planner. Note 1. Names, characters, and places are changed for privacy reasons. Note 2. Trigger warning. This revenge story involves gaslighting and infidelity. Names. Matt, edit, me for clarity, 39-year-old gay male with lupus. George, partner of 13 years, is a year older at 40. John, 33-year-old affair partner, financial advisor. Background. A bit of backstory. Partner and I were monogamous for 10 years. Sure, we had an occasional threesome before that, but nothing long-term. I know I am potentially going to get a few people who will say that's where it all started. The understanding was that we would not do anything behind the other's back, and whomever we brought into the relationship would be an equal in the relationship. We wanted to have our couple evolve into a throuple. Needless to say, it didn't work out. We tried, and basically the last person we tried to court ended up gaslighting me and playing the victim with George. Admittedly, I wasn't bringing my best self to the relationship. Two people who basically raised me died, and I was in mourning, and I was focused on the rest of my family, whom I love dearly. Partner uses my lupus and choosing to spend time with family as his justification for cheating and lying to me about it. D-Day spread over a few days before COVID lockdowns. In March, my partner had told me he wanted some time apart. I initially agreed, but then things just didn't seem right. I thought we were fine relationship-wise, but something seemed amiss. I have my own place, and I give him some space. D-Day 1. Sunday. He tells me he has a spa session, legit massage, that evening, and that he would be busy and wouldn't be able to meet till late for dinner. I didn't think anything was going on behind my back. He said he would call when he was done and not to wait for me for dinner. We were still having meals together since it's something we were so used to doing together. I needed some notebook I had left at his place, and thinking he was having his spa session, I let myself into his place. Lo and behold, he's having dinner with the John. I leave, and he assures me that he's just having dinner with a friend and that his spa session got rescheduled. I asked point blank if anything was going on between them, and he said no. D-Day 2. Wednesday. I'm just a complete wreck. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's true and what's real anymore. And I get the gut feeling that there's more to George and John than George is letting me in on. I do some sleuthing and find out that they're friends on Facebook, but not on Instagram. Curious, no? Yet, they've been liking each other's posts on Instagram. I remember George logging into my iPad, so I could go on and check for any message history. And wouldn't you know, I see exchanges between them going on for months. Once again, I asked George who is this person whom he's been friends with on Facebook but not on Instagram, and why are their interactions so bizarre? George tells me he's just a friend, nothing more, and that I'm crazy. My blood must have been boiling at this point. I then remind him that he's still logged into my iPad, and his face just changes. He tells me that I betrayed his trust, and that I really shouldn't have done that. He must have been in full-blown panic mode. And their messages, I find out that they've been seeing each other since September of 2019. I had an emergency appendectomy in October of 2019. Turns out what I thought was indigestion was actually chronic appendicitis, and it had finally ruptured. And the very next day, while I was recovering in the hospital, George and John went out for dinner, and John stayed over after. No prizes for guessing what happened that night. They're talking about me in their conversations, and they even arranged to meet on Monday, after D-Day 1. John asked if I would show up again, and George said that I wouldn't. At this point, my whole life before just felt like one big bat lie. I'm having plenty of sleepless nights, thinking about how I'm the chump they were fooling for 5 months. I was none the wiser. Furious, I engaged revenge for hire services. I wasn't thinking clearly and caveat emptor. I lucked out with a service that did a good job. I'd give them all the information about John I had. Not much, just his social media accounts. And they did some investigative work. They dug up quite a bit of dirt on him. Turns out, John was in a relationship as well. Inform the other partner? Check. George wasn't the only person John was cheating with. They managed to find some chat history of his hookups all the way to 2017. What's most interesting is that John enjoyed using illicit drugs while having these trysts, complete with contact information of parties involved and locations where it happened. They dug deeper and found conversations where he would advise friends to commit insurance fraud. Nothing major, mind you, but fraud is fraud. And from the conversations, it seems that the insurers did pay out for bogus travel delays. The revenge agency then asked me how I would like to proceed with the information. I told them I just want his life ruined. My life and relationship have been ruined. Why not share a little the pain I was feeling? The agency said that they had informed all parties involved. Last I heard, his insurance agencies dropped him on the basis of encouraging insurance fraud, and he has a criminal record for drug use. And now that he has a criminal record, means he can no longer travel to Canada or Japan, countries he loves to visit. His family knows that he's been cheating and using drugs, and his partner knows he's been screwing around, without protection and without PREP.